Hey, and welcome to Board with Life News for July 8th. Today I'm going to talk about a board game version of Attack on Titan, Game of Thrones Risk, the Spiel des Jahres and Kinderspiel des Jahres winners, as well as the Kickstarter for Microscope Explorer. Let's get to it. Hey, I'm Chris. Welcome to Board with Life News. Up first, Attack on Titan is getting a board game. I first saw this news, I was like, oh, yay, that's cool. I like the anime Attack on Titan. Alright, I think it's pretty good. I'd be down with a board game of that, and then I saw Cryptozoic was making it, and I was like, oh, never mind, that game's gonna totally suck, because Cryptozoic's licensed stuff normally just isn't good. But then, I saw that Antoine Bauza and Ludovic Maublanc are going to be designing it. They're both very what word am I looking for? Well-established, very well-liked designers in their own right, but also they did Rampage or Terra and Maple City together that came out a year or two ago. I got this photo off Reddit from Blinky-kun. They had shot it because I think they had it at like Anime Expo or something last weekend. They were showing it off. So it seems like there's a lot of dice in the game. It might be like I don't know how they're used, but it doesn't seem like they're just rolled for like, combat or anything like that. And the Titan itself has several different levels on it, so it looks like maybe you can climb the Titan, or those are places you have to hit or something. It'd be cool if you put a die on them. I don't know, but it looks interesting, so I've got hope because I like those designers. Keeping with the trend of licensed games, Game of Thrones Risk just got announced, and it's coming out from USAopoly. Honestly, Risk is a pretty natural fit for Game of Thrones. It's a show all about literally trying to rule the whole world. And there are some good versions of Risk. Risk 2210, Lord of the Rings Risk wasn't bad. Obviously Risk Legacy. So there are possibilities playing kind of within those mechanics that are for the most part outdated and stale to make interesting new ideas come up or present them. Anyways, man, I can't talk today. The game's going to be for 2 to 7 players, which, if they're keeping with old Risk with player elimination and the downtime between turns, I do not want to play a game with 7 players Risk. But if they might have changed that somewhat, it's going to have 2 different boards that you can play. One has a special 2-player thing. You add them both together for the 7-player version. 315 different pieces with really cool looking sculpts. But it's going to cost $75, which this seems like the kind of game, because the Game of Thrones game from Fantasy Flight is already fantastic. So like the hobby board game already has their Game of Thrones game. We like it. It's very well loved. So this is more for Game of Thrones fans that can see a game at Target and want to buy that, which is fine. But $75 seems like a huge price point for that. This seems like something that should cost $30. But who knows? I mean, it could be good, but then again, it's Risk, so I don't know, go play the Fantasy Flight Game of Thrones game because it's good. This week, they announced the Spiel des Jahres winners. That's the biggest award given in board gaming. It's the German Game of the Year. And the winner was Cult Express, in a bit of a surprise. I think a lot of people were expecting Machikoro to win. I saw Rich Sommer picked correctly online on Twitter that Cult Express was going to win, so good on him. He must have had some insider info. But Machikoro just seemed like the kind of more standard fare that they would select. So some people were upset about Cult Express. I don't know. I can say for Cult Express, it's the type of game that brings people to the table. When you see it set up, people come, people watch, people cheer. So it can draw in people that aren't traditional board gamers. And that's kind of what maybe the Spiel des Jahres should be. But I don't know. Then the Kinderspiel des Jahres, which is the enthusiast game of the year, the more complex or complicated game of the year, went to Broom Service. I haven't gotten a chance to play it yet, but I've heard almost universal praise for this game. People really, really like it. It's interesting that it's an updated version of Witch's Brew, which came out in 2008 and was nominated for the Spiel des Jahres, but didn't win. And this is a different category, so it's kind of weird. But I've heard that it's not just like a reprint. It's like a pretty drastically changed update just based around the core mechanics of it. So I'll definitely want to try that out in the near future. The Kickstarter for this week is for Microscope Explorer. This is an expansion to the very popular indie RPG Microscope. And in Microscope, you build an entire civilization over 100,000 years or more than that, from the very rise to the very end of a complete culture or a complete something, right? It's very loose. So you kind of get to do it with whoever's around the table with you. It's a very interesting role-playing game that has been popular for a couple years now. Microscope Explorer isn't the first expansion to that game. It's a new book that uses the core rules of Microscope and then modifies them to give you a couple new experiences, including 3 new specific spin-offs. One is Chronicle, where that's more of a singular history of a place or a thing, where it could be the history of a castle or a powerful sword or something like that. Echo, which adds time travel, so now you can kind of see how your civilization ended and then go back in time and see if you can affect that, or maybe you affect it and end it in a different way, or whatever. So that's pretty interesting. And then Union, which is exploring the branches of a family tree. Sounds pretty interesting. I'm a big fan of the RPG. You can get this on Kickstarter for $30 for the physical book and PDF, so go back it if that sounds interesting to you. All right, that's the news for this week. Thanks so much for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe, like us, all that stuff, Twitter, Facebook, you know how to do it. Also, check out our podcasts. We have both Board with Life Radio that you can find on your favorite way of listening to podcasts, where we play D&D, and we also have Houses and Humans, which is a sister podcast where that's more indie RPGs, things like Microscope, which we haven't played yet, but we should. All right, the question for this week, actually, it's just a question that people have asked time and time again, and it kind of came up in the comments of last week's news video, so I'm going to address it. Because some people have noticed that some of my games are still in shrink wrap, and that very much bothers them. For example, Doomtown, you can see, is still in shrink wrap. The reason I do that is I keep games in shrink wrap until I play that actual game. Not just the game, but the copy of the game I own. First is probably the most obvious reason, where it just retains the value better, where if I want to sell it or if I want to trade it or something like that, it is worth a slight amount more if it's still in shrink. And even more than that is somebody's not going to go oh, it was missing a piece when it wasn't missing a piece or something. It's just easier. But my selfish reason that I do that is I like to open games a lot. I'm sure a lot of you do too, where the act of opening it and the smell and all that stuff is a lot of fun. So if I don't open a game when I buy it, but I open a game when I'm going to play it, it encourages me to play it because I have that special little Christmas morning gift just to myself. A lot of the games that are in shrink I have played, and I do play regularly. It's just somebody else in my game group owns it, and we always wind up using their copy, or I'll use it from a game library of a place or something like that. Some of them I have never played, and I just buy based on designer or publisher, what looks interesting, things like that, and they just haven't hit the table yet. But that's why I do that. That's why some of my games are still in shrink. You should try it. You should try that little delayed gratification. Feels really good. All right, that's the news for this week, and I'll see you next week.